All right, so thank you for tuning in to Chomping at the Bit. I'm Kyle Edwards, of course. Now, in this episode, we're going to take a look at the NFL Week 12, what happened. And in doing that, we're going to take a look at my picks that I made. How well did I do? See how the season's going so far. And then at the end of the episode, we're going to take a look at the Thursday matchup, which will then, of course, be the first pick I make for Week 13. I say this every week, but it's crazy that it's already Week 13 now. And, of course, with looking back at Week 12, we'll also take a look at the playoff picture, because I think I said a couple of weeks ago that we'll start looking at that each week to see kind of what kind of movement there's been and kind of see if some of these teams, have distanced themselves from the pack or what's going on in the NFC, because we know the bottom of the NFC playoff picture is a muddled mess right now. The AFC, a lot of good teams battling out for wild card spots, so we'll take a look at that as well at the end of the episode. But so before we get into it, if this is your first episode, appreciate you joining me. Hopefully you enjoy it, and then stick around for more episodes to come, or go back and check some of the previous episodes that I've done. And with that, take a look at Week 12. Week 12, of course, was Thanksgiving week, so we had 3 games on Thanksgiving. And Sunday slate, Monday slate, of course. Would say that it was a pretty decent week, I think. We had some close games and some pretty good matchups. So it was a good week to watch games. So let's go ahead and kick it off with Bears-Lions. That was the first game on Thursday. And the line going into that game, it was 3. I went ahead and took the Bears -3. And what happened was the Bears won it 16-14. But that's only 2, so that's a loss for me. Oh, I didn't mention this real quick, but when I make picks, I make them against the spread. So, I gave you the point line for Bears-Lions. I picked based off of that who's going to cover. And since the Bears didn't cover the 3, as they only won by 2, that means Detroit covered, so it's a loss. So that was a quick explanation. So coming out of this game, going into the game, a lot of talk about Matt Nagy getting fired. And not to say that the Bears, played with any type of inspiration to make it seem like they're playing for him. But, getting the win definitely did help. I think what also is helping Matt Nagy right now is that the bottom of the NFC playoff picture is such a mess that the Bears, who improved to 4-7, are still technically in it. And I mean, who knows? They win a couple of games because they're battling it out with teams like Atlanta. We know how bad Atlanta is. The Saints, Vikings, the Niners, a bunch of teams. The Eagles. And, they're all flawed teams. So, I know the Bears are dealing with the Fields injury right now. But I think it'd be kind of tough to fire Nagy right now, even though if they have a chance of making the playoffs. Now, not to say that once they're officially eliminated, then he gets fired. I could see that. I also don't know if they really make the playoffs. Let's say they make the playoffs and they're like, 7-10, 8-9. They get in as a 7 seed, get embarrassed on wild card weekend. I'm sure Nagy would be gone anyway. So that's something to look forward to as we go here these last few weeks in the season. For the Lions, they're winless. Nothing else to say. So go ahead, jump to the next game, which was the Raiders and the Cowboys. I think going into Thanksgiving, this looked like probably the best game of the 3. And it definitely was the most entertaining, I would say. For some reasons that aren't exactly the best. There was a lot of questionable calls in this game. You heard the broadcast. Tony Romo was voicing his opinion of some of the flags. The line was at 7.5. I took the Cowboys minus 7.5. The Raiders pulled, I guess, the minor upset here and won it 36-33. But so the Cowboys are now 7-4. Raiders are 6-5. For the Raiders, I feel like this was a season-saving win for them. I will say that I did like seeing Deshaun Jackson, out there playing well for the Raiders in this game. I think he's like mid-30s now, but he still looks as fast to me as he did like in his Eagles days. And I think it's going to be a welcome sight for the Raiders, as he's going to be able to take, the top off the defense and all that. He'll probably open up space for Waller. And I know the Raiders said that they're going to get back to, focusing on the run a little bit more. So I think that's going to open up running lanes for Jacobs or Drake, whoever's in the backfield. So this could definitely be a turning point in the Raiders season. They are, in that group in the AFC that's above 500. Is like 10, 11 teams in the AFC above 500 right now. So they all have shots at the playoffs. And this is a game that, like I said, could be a jumping off point for the Raiders to maybe make a late run here after they started off well and then had a little bit of a slump there. But now, a win like this, and with Deshaun Jackson bringing in, infusing some new life into the offense, this could be the start of some good times for the Raiders. Cowboys at 7-4, they're still, leading the NFC East, but there is kind of a disturbing trend with them because, one, they have the whole Amari Cooper thing where, he tested positive for COVID, found out he was unvaccinated and all this stuff. So, and I don't know if like Dak looks like a completely different quarterback when Amari doesn't play. So we'll have to see how many games that turns into. I think he's supposed to play Thursday night, but the margin is getting slimmer for the Cowboys. A few weeks ago, they were running away with the division. But now, depending on what happens Thursday night, if they lose that game, 7-5, you have Washington and the Eagles with 5 wins. They win Sunday. 6, you could be looking at a 1-game lead. And then the pressure really gets turned up on the Cowboys because this was, you've heard it. This is supposed to be their year. Looks so good early, but now you're really starting to see the warts of this team. Big question, what do you do with Ezekiel Elliott? I know they're paying him good money, but he's not the best running back on the roster. Pollard gives you way more than Elliott does right now. And I just don't know if Jerry Jones or McCarthy or any of them would ever, I guess, sit Elliott, or I don't know. There's something they got to sort out, because if it was me, I'd have Pollard just start. If you have to turn Elliott into a short yardage back or a goal line back, he'd be the most expensive one, but if that's what you have to do to get wins, then that's what you have to do. And then in the offseason, you deal with it however you have to. But a game that the Cowboys, in the grand scheme of things, yes, it would have been nice to win. But luckily, since they're in such a terrible division, and they're in the bad conference as well, I don't think it really hinders their playoff chances right now. But string together another loss or two. Could be talking about something different. But anyway, good win for the Raiders. Move on to the final game on Thanksgiving. Had the Bills and the Saints. The line was 6.5 on this one. I took the Bills minus 6.5. And the final score ended up being the Bills winning 31-6. So that's a easy cover for me. So in this one, I mean, it is what it is. The Saints are a beat up team right now. I do wonder what the Saints season would have looked like if Jameis Winston didn't get hurt, because they just looked like a much better team at that point. Now, Trevor Simeon, he has limitations. That's why he's a backup. But for the current state of the Saints team, he's going to have to step his game up in order for them to win, because it's a hassle on offense for them to try to be explosive and put up a lot of points. With Kamara being injured, no Thomas, and their offense just isn't dynamic right now. Now, they do play the Cowboys Thursday. I believe they've already said Taysom Hill's going to start. We'll have to see what that looks like, because to be honest with you, I haven't been really impressed with Taysom Hill as a quarterback, but he does bring that running element, and I think we'll really see here. Sean Payton is seen as an offensive genius. I mean, clearly the Saints are going to have to get real creative with their offense to really stay competitive and try to steal a playoff spot. So with Taysom Hill, would not be surprised to see Thursday some reverses, wide receiver passes, double reverse, something like that, to try to get something going. And then for the defense, they're going to have to step their game up to keep the team in the game, and then hope for the offense to make enough plays to win. So giving up 31 to a team like Buffalo, who is capable of putting up numbers like that, but the way the Saints offense is right now, I mean, their defense is going to be pressed to keep teams in the low 20s to give this Saints team a chance. I mean, that's a lot to ask, but it's kind of where they're at right now. Now, unless Taysom Hill comes in and I don't know, just catches lightning in a bottle, play action passing, plays with his legs, and they play like a real grinding, time of possession type game, then maybe that could be their recipe. But for right now, they seem like a team that's going to slowly sink further and further down the NFC, even though other teams will be dragged down with them. So they'll probably still be a playoff contender for the next, 4 or 5 weeks. So, I mean, like I said, the NFC is just that bad right now. But good win for the Bills, like I said, because don't look now with the AFC East. New England passed them, right? But Miami, after their horrific start, got on a little win streak of their own, and they're sitting with 2.5 games behind Buffalo. So that's where that game Monday night, like I said, where New England plays Buffalo, it's going to be a really big game, because if Buffalo loses that, drops 7-5, and Miami wins to go to 6-7, after all that, Miami could be sitting a game behind Buffalo come Tuesday morning. And if that happens, I mean, I could already hear the panic from Buffalo right now, because New England passed them. So, they assumed that they were going to run the division for a little bit, and it literally only lasted a year. So, definitely interesting storyline going forward. And also for the Bills, they need to figure out a running game because they're putting way too much on Josh Allen. And yeah, it's going to work against some teams like the Saints, but if they play like in New England or Kansas City, put Baltimore in there right now, or Cincinnati, teams that are able to put up points, I think it could be a struggle for Buffalo if they don't establish a run, because defenses are just going to, I think I said this before, they'll just treat Josh Allen like Peyton Manning and kind of sit back and nickel or dime and try to force the Bills to run it even though they don't want to. And then that's going to take them out of their game, which once you do that, you're not going to win many games in January, or if you hopefully make it to February for a Super Bowl, definitely won't win one of those. So we'll see come Monday, because it's supposed to be bad weather as well in Buffalo on Monday. So maybe they'll be forced to try to run. And it has to be somebody other than Josh Allen, because he's basically the running game as well. And like I said, I think it's putting too much on him, because now you're just, big hit on a scramble away from your offense completely going in the tank. But like I said, win for Buffalo. They get to breathe a little bit and feel a little bit better after squandering their kind of sizable lead in the AFC East, at least a few weeks ago. So that was the Thanksgiving games. Now we're on to the Sunday games. Now the first game look at is the Bengals Steelers. Let's see, what was the line? The line was 3.5. I took the Bengals minus the 3.5. And Bengals won 41-10. So it's a win for me. And this game, very easy. Comes down to one guy. Big Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, you Steelers fans out there, you're going to have to let me know. What do you see in Ben that continues to make it that he's the starting quarterback? Now, I know it was a couple of years ago or last year, whatever year it was, that 11-0 start was a great surprise. But yeah, what happened after that? I believe they lost the last 5 and then got embarrassed the first game in the playoffs. But he came back anyway. And it seems like with Ben, he's good at the start of the season, but as the season goes on, he gets worse and worse and worse. And now, Steelers lose this one. They're 5-1. And we know that the one was that game against the Lions. He didn't play in that one, but they are basically heading down the road to being 500 at best. And I think Ben's contract's up at the end of the year. So I swear, I mean, I'm not a Steelers fan, as you know. I'm a Patriots fan. But I swear, if the Steelers make the mistake and give Ben some type of extension, whether it's 1 year or 2 years or whatever, I'm going to laugh. They need to move on. They've needed to move on for a couple of years now, even though Steelers fans will try to tell you that, Mike Tomlin's the issue or whatever. No. Ben needs to go. Remember when he was first in the league? He was this big guy who was mobile, so he could scramble, and then if the play wasn't there, he could, run over linebackers, whatever. He can't even move. He's a big, slow statue. His arm isn't that great anymore. He's turnover prone, especially as we get later into the year. So what are they doing? Now, they haven't exactly put the best backup quarterback there to really push him, because you got like Mason Rudolph, you had Josh Dobbs, and whoever else they had back there. So the more they continue to run Big Ben out there, trust me, you'll see more results like this, especially against better teams. Yeah, he's probably good enough to beat bad teams. But Pittsburgh, you might want to look in the mirror. You are one of those teams. I don't care that you're 5-5, and maybe you have hold on by a thread to the chance of the playoff spot. Not a good team. And just watch a game. Just watch one, and you'll see. Their offense, I don't even know. The passing game, basically within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, that's all the passes. Anything deep, he might connect on a couple here and there, but not really a big threat to kill you downfield. So a lot of the defenses are playing up close to the line. He trots back, he throws these little swing passes to Harris or whoever, a yard or two from the line of scrimmage, and then it's just a gang tackle for like a 3-4 yard gain. You get him in 3rd and long, good chance they're not picking it up because teams are just going to blitz because Ben can't move. He has to get rid of it quick, and then you just tackle him, and they're punting. So, if that's cool with y'all Steelers, then keep running Big Ben out there. And just know that the other teams in the AFC North, because you're seeing a change of the guard here with the Bengals have now swept the Steelers season series. I think they play Baltimore. I think they're kind of like New England and Buffalo, where they're going to play each other. Their season series is going to happen in these next 4 or 5 weeks. I think they still have a game against Cleveland. So those days of the Steelers running the AFC North, long gone. And with the Bengals, gotta give them some credit too. They put up 41 on the Steelers, and this was in Cincinnati. I know the game in Pittsburgh they played really well. So, Cincinnati has some young pieces, and I've said it before, they're fun to watch. I think they're starting to look like a legit playoff team, and we all know that organization, it's been rough for a while. So it's good to see them seemingly starting to turn it around here. And what they do have going for them is looking at, quarterback, running back, wide receiver position. They are probably the best team in that division right now. I know Baltimore has Lamar Jackson, but outside of that, does Hollywood Brown do it for you? Yeah. Mark Andrews is good. I'll give him that. But yeah, the Bengals got Burrow, Mixon, Chase, Higgins. I think they're the most talented offensive group. The Browns could make a case, but Mayfield has his issues. But Chubb and Hunt are great as running backs. But wide receiver, you got Jarvis Landry. He's a little older. Pittsburgh's clearly the worst. So, like I said, future looks bright for Cincinnati. And from where they've been, it's taken a while to get here. But if you're a Bengal fan, especially seeing what happened on Sunday, be grateful that finally there's, the right people in the right place in that organization that clearly have made the right moves over the past couple of years, and something to celebrate, something to be happy for each year, that you actually have a chance now. Now it could all blow up in my face with me saying this, and next year they could be at the bottom of the division again. I don't see that, but it's the NFL. Very unpredictable, but for right now, celebrate your Bengals. and just have fun with it. All right, so moving on to the next game. Bucks, Colts. The line was 2.5. I took the Bucks minus the 2.5 on this one. And this was a really close game, but the Bucks pulled it out in the end, 38-31, and so that's a 7-point win. To win as the Bucks covered. So for this one, this game was all about Leonard Fournette. He had 4 touchdowns on the ground, and Brady was all right. And I do think we're seeing here that coming off of this game, I think they'll probably rely on Fournette a little more, try to save Brady up for the playoffs, because we know he's 43 or whatever now. So you don't want him going out there and just going full speed at the end of the regular season here and then burning out in the playoffs. They're going to have to do a little bit here to save his arm and his energy for a playoff run. But if they could get production like this out of Fournette, then, Tom will turn around, hand the ball 30, 35 times, make a few plays in play action, and they'll be fine. For the Colts, we've seen this story already this season. They do really well against bad teams, struggle against good teams. This one, they went into the half 24-14. It looked like they were going to get a second win against the good team because they beat Buffalo last week. But the second half, it all fell apart. And, they came up short again. So, I know a lot of people were saying that the Colts were a dangerous team, the bottom of the AFC. But for me, until they can consistently beat good teams, I don't see the point in really worrying about them. Because they still have some good teams left on their schedule. It'd be one thing if it was just bad teams and you could be like, oh, they'll win out and then, figure it out in the playoffs. But they still have matchups against, I think, Tennessee. They have the New England game. I want to say Kansas City or something, but they have 3 or 4 legit teams left on their schedule, and based on the way this year has gone, you can't feel too confident that they'll be able to win those games. So, for me, the jury's still out on the Colts. I think they could, finesse their way as the last wild card team, but in the AFC, the 6-win teams, there's quite a group building right now, and I don't know if the Colts are the best team in that group, so we'll just wait and see. That's all I'll say for the Colts right now. Wait and see. And for the Bucks, like I said, the way that they played in this one, now they bottled up Jonathan Taylor, which I kind of told you that was going to happen because the Bucks play great run defense, but expect to see them relying on the run game a little bit more here to save Tom Brady. All right, let's go to the next game, which was Panthers Dolphins. So this one, the line was at 1. I took the Panthers minus 1, and the Dolphins blew them out. 33-10, so way off on that one. Coming from this game, it's simple. People overreacted to the whole Cam Newton thing over the last couple of weeks. First week when he barely played, got 2 touchdowns, and he proclaimed to everybody that he was back. And then last week, they lost to, Washington, and he played okay. This game, we saw the New England Cam, which is why he didn't keep that job, why he was sitting at home for a while, and why I said when Carolina signed him, didn't really move the needle for me because he still has the same issues. This game, he was 5 for 21, 2 interceptions, and he got benched, which, if you remember, he got benched a few times in New England. But, so yeah, the Panthers are 5-7. Dolphins are now 5-7. As I said with Buffalo, Dolphins were 1-7 4 weeks ago. Have run off 4 straight. Have put themselves in a position where, as crazy as it sounds, depending on what goes on last few weeks here, maybe they can crawl out from that group in the AFC and sneak in to a playoff spot. Probably not. I think there's so many teams they'd have to climb over at this point, but you never know. They're at least in the conversation. You have to give them at least that. And Tua looked pretty good. He looked like a legit quarterback, not exactly a maybe number 1 overall pick type quarterback, but he looked like a quarterback who, given the right situation, can win you some games. He made some good throws, made good decisions. He didn't get too far outside of himself and get himself in trouble. He played really well. I'll have to give him that. And I guess last thing, Carolina. I don't see where it gets better because, like I said, you watch that game. Cam threw the ball downfield a couple of times. A lot of his passes are still kind of intermediate and short. But the issue is he still is inaccurate. There was several plays with wide receivers running crossing routes, and he was late on it. So when he throws it, it's a little bit behind the receiver. But when you do that, you're now bringing the defender into play because usually the defender trails the wide receiver on a crossing pattern like that. And that's where Cam Newton gets in trouble. And then his 2 interceptions were kind of him throwing it in the intermediate, and they were kind of like timing routes, but he threw it either too far in front of the receiver and into a Dolphin player hand, or I think both of them were kind of like that. He was trying to lead the receiver, but he was wildly off on the throw, and it turned into easy interceptions. So Carolina, I don't know if there's a lot to be optimistic about coming out of this game. But once again, the NFC is that bad that it may only take 8 wins to get in. So can Cam somehow get you, 3-2 down the stretch? I don't know. Look at their schedule real quick. They have the Falcons, which are in the same boat as them. Not that good of a team, but I mean, we know Cam Newton likes to play against the Falcons. That's his hometown team, so we'll see. But then it's Buffalo, Tampa, New Orleans, and Tampa again. You're not going to pick them in either Buck game, unless the last week, if they sit Brady and a bunch of guys because they've already clinched the spot, maybe. But at least the first Bucks game, you don't feel good about. Saints game, kind of in the same boat. So they're going to have to win the Falcons-Saints game, no doubt. And then hope to steal one of the Bucks games. Yeah. Not optimistic, but hey, maybe they win the 2, they get 7-10, and they win some tiebreaker against some other trash team at the bottom of the NFC. Actually, Dolphins, let me see real quick, because they're 5-7. What does the rest of their schedule look like? So they have Giants, Jets. That's 2 winnable games. They have Saints, winnable. Then they have Titans and Patriots. Yeah. I mean, they'd have to win 4 out of 5 to even have a shot. And I honestly feel like in the AFC, you're going to have to win at least 10 games to get in. But at least it'll be a good good way to end the year for them if they can continue this momentum. Try to carry it into next year. We'll just have to see. Well, let's move on. Next game, Titans Patriots. The line on this game was 7.5, and I took the Titans plus 7.5. Going off Vrabel and he just seems to find a way to keep games close against Belichick. But this one turned into a little bit of a blowout here. New England won it 36-13. So I was completely fine getting this one wrong. But it looked like early on that it was going to be a close game because Patriots scored touchdown in the first quarter. Second quarter, they had a couple of drives that got into the red zone, but had to settle for field goals. And it looked like it was going to be one of those things where they left points on the field and kept Tennessee in the game. Tennessee was going to build some momentum and possibly maybe steal a win. Especially even with the Titans getting that late touchdown in the second quarter on the draw play that went for like 67 yards or something. But, came out of the half. New England took full control of the game. And like I said, 36-13. Now for Tennessee, this was first chance for me to really see this Tennessee offense without Derrick Henry because we know they relied so much on him before. And Tannehill really struggled. Now, Patriots are a good defense, so I'm not going to say that he'll look like that each week without Derrick Henry, but probably more of an issue was that A.J. Brown didn't play. And Julio didn't play, but I've said before, Julio's hurt every year. If you didn't know that, let me let you know. He misses games every year. So that was whatever. But A.J. Brown, you could see it in this game. He was sorely missed by the Titans offense. So interesting to see how far they drop. Now in terms of the division, they still have a 2-game lead on Indy, and I think they'll be fine there. But it was just last week or so, the Titans were the number 1 team in the AFC. I don't see them getting back there. Because like I said, it's gonna be a challenge to win games right now. Defensively, they're okay, but they just relied so much on Derrick Henry because he was kind of like a cheat code. Because not only was he powerful, but he's a lot faster than you think he is, and it's almost not fair for him to be that big and that fast, but. They're really going to miss him, and we know that the Adrian Peterson thing didn't work out because they let him go. So they're going with kind of 2 speed backs right now. We'll just have to see. Can they just tread water until supposedly Derrick Henry may be able to come back in January? So can they tread water, get a good enough playoff seeding that when Henry comes back, they get a home game and then just kind of see where they go from there. For New England, 6th straight win. Mac Jones and this offense. I just said, the defense, we all know. Defense is good. Matt Judon is, he's a menace on the edge. J.C. Jackson, another interception. Ho-hum, he does that all the time. Now they did give up some plays in the running game, but they caused a couple of fumbles on long runs. So the defense is getting turnovers, and Mac Jones is keeping the formula where he doesn't make too many dumb decisions during these games. If you watch, a lot of the times, even if it's an incomplete pass, you understand where he was going with the ball, and it makes sense. He threw 2 touchdown passes, but I know there was a play where he had Hunter Henry kind of open and he missed him. But I mean, you'll take that. It's a rookie thing. And the weather was a little bit cold, so it was, I guess, Mac Jones' first time playing in that for New England. So it's probably a little bit of adjustment there with him. Now Monday, it's supposed to be like 80% chance of snow in Buffalo. So we'll have to see how he can deal with that. Now we're bringing in a weather element. And if he can play well there, then you'll know that he's built for January football in New England. But yeah, so both teams are now 8-4. Patriots are now number 2 in the AFC. I think Tennessee number 3. Baltimore's number 1. Yeah, but yeah, both teams 8-4. Patriots seem to be trending upward. Titans are kind of trying to keep it in neutral right now. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the next game. Eagles, Giants. So this one, the line was 3.5. I took the Eagles minus 3.5. This was not a pretty game. I think I'll just say it was an ugly game to watch. Michael Strahan did get his number retired during the halftime or whatever. So it was a big emotional game for the Giants, and they were able to get the win with the final score of 13-7. So the Eagles did not cover, and this came down to a lost opportunity for the Eagles. The Eagles clearly are a better team than the Giants, but give Giants defense credit. The Giants defense it's pretty good. Offensively, the Giants have the same issues they've had before, and I said this last week. They're going to have to really take self-evaluation of Daniel Jones, and they're going to need to make a decision there. To be honest, I don't think they can go into next year with him as a starting quarterback. Now, whether you go out and draft one or you try to get one through free agency, that's up to the Giants. But, yeah, Daniel Jones should not be their starting quarterback next year. Not to say he can't, develop into one in a couple of years, but yeah, he needs to. Yeah, he needs to be a backup and learn behind somebody. Like I said, for the Eagles, this is a big game for them, because if they've gotten this one, they'd be 6-6. They'd be putting real pressure on Dallas, and we know that Dallas, we've seen it in the past, can kind of crumble a little bit under that, but. They drop it. They're now 5-7. The Giants are 4-7. And Jalen Reagor for the Eagles had a rough game, because even with the 13-7, they had an opportunity to win it late in the fourth quarter. Hurts scrambled around, bought time, threw a pass to Reagor. He should have caught it. Hit him dead in his hands. I think if he had caught it, he would have came down at the 1, and then at that point, maybe he fights into the end zone. But either way, that play should have put them in a position to then run a next play or score there to get the win. Then earlier in the game, Hurts threw a great ball down the left side. Hitting Reagor in stride in the end zone. He bobbled it, turned into an interception. So he had a rough day. Those two plays alone had big time impact on this game. You can look at those two plays as the reason why they lost this game. But yeah, this is going to be a game that the Eagles are going to kick themselves about, because they should have won it. But hey, the Giants took advantage, and that's what you're supposed to do. But let's go ahead and go to the next game. We got Falcons Jaguars. The line on this one was 1.5. Took the Falcons -1.5 on this one. This is another game. Wasn't exactly a pretty game to watch, but the Falcons were able to take it 21-14, which means they covered. That's a win. This game didn't really tell you anything you didn't know. The Jaguars still stink. Although I was about to say I could make the argument they might have been the better team on that day. They weren't. And the Falcons didn't exactly look great either. They looked meh. They went into the half 14-3. Falcons were up. Looked like it'd be one of those games where they'd win easily. But it's kind of tell you more about the Jaguars and where they are right now. But in the second half, the Jaguars made it close. Made a ball game out of it, like I said, 21-14. And it just didn't even raise more questions. Because like I said, the Falcons aren't that good. They're 5-6. You can honestly say they might be even lucky to be 5-6. They're sure lucky to be anywhere near a playoff spot. But as I've said several times in this episode, NFC is not that good, so it doesn't say much about them as the current state of your non-division leaders and non-NFC West teams right now. Besides Seattle, because they stink. But other than that, every team mediocre. And luckily, the Falcons sit right in that group. So, yeah. Any year, the Falcons will be making plans for next year at this point, probably. But this year, they may find a way to stick into this through the end of the year, which would be fascinating to me because the issues are there for you point blank. Running game stinks other than Cordero Patterson. Passing game, Kyle Pitts is talented, but he can't get open because defenses aren't dumb. They know he's the only one who can really burn you. So, passing game is a struggle. Offensive line isn't good against good defenses, so Matt Ryan's usually scrambling for his life. With that, he takes big hits, and even going back to the game against New England, we saw where he was hobbling around, and yeah, big time changes need to be made in Atlanta. Hopefully Arthur Smith, I'm guessing he's be making decisions down there, but hopefully he comes into it with a legit game plan and drafts the right guys, gets the right free agents to somehow turn it around. And by that I mean don't fall in love with some SEC guy because he runs a 4-3 or whatever. Fix the defense mainly. Start there. And the offensive line. Start with those two, then I'll be impressed. But yeah, they beat a bad team. They're a bad team. That's about all I need to say for the Falcons right now and the Jaguars. Let's go to the next game. And speaking of bad, it was the Jets and the Texans. I took the Texans -3 because, I had to pick somebody. And wouldn't you know, the Jets won 21-14. Got burned there. And what good can I say about this? Zach Wilson came back. If that makes you happy out there. No, I'm kind of joking here. So Zach Wilson, I mean, he's the young quarterback. You want him to get as much experience as he can. So that is a positive for the Jets. They improved to 3-8. I mean, no playoffs this year, but Zach Wilson experience, that's what their season is. Texans are 2-9. They're not good anyway, so yeah, no real reason to deep dive into this one. Two bad teams. Texans may come out as a winner because a loss here pushes them, well, I'm about to say closer to a number one pick, but Detroit probably has that on lock as they're probably going to go winless or maybe win a game this year. So the real race is for number 2. So Texans are right there with the Jaguars with 2-9. Jets at 3-8. So yeah, maybe this pushes them closer to the number 2 pick. There you go. Let's go to the next game. We have Chargers, Broncos. Took the Broncos +3 in this one. And the Broncos got the win 28-13. So they covered there. For this one, both teams are now 6-5. If you look at the AFC West, it is crazy how tight that division is, especially after this result. I just told you earlier, Raiders are now 6-5. Chargers are now 6-5. The Broncos are 6-5. And the Chiefs were on a bye, and they're 7-4. So the whole division is with a game of each other. It's going to be interesting to see what goes on in the AFC West. And like I said, I said this last week, this was a game where if the Chargers won it, they could have found themselves they would have been in a virtual tie with Kansas City and, see where things go. But now with the loss, it just further compacts everything. I don't really know what to make of the division because you have good elements from each team that if you somehow packaged it all together, you'd have a really great team. So for the Chargers, you have a good young quarterback and a legit number 1 in Keenan Allen. The Broncos have a really good defense. Their offense is middle of the road because Teddy Bridgewater is limited in the passing game. And Melvin Gordon is a decent running back, but he's not great because, that's just where he is right now. So even with these two teams, if you took the Chargers' offensive ability with the weapons they have, mixed it with the Denver Broncos defense, you'd have a really good team. And like I said, the Raiders, their offense, I would say now with Deshaun Jackson playing off of Darren Waller, they have a pretty good offensive outlook. Defensively, they're And kind of the same with Kansas City, we know. If they're right, their offense is great. But the defense still leaves a lot to be desired. But they have the potential to be at least okay enough to play off of that high-powered offense when right. That is not that big of a problem. But Kansas City has issues running the ball. And we know January, depending where you play, if you have to go up to Baltimore, you have to go to New England, could be an issue, or to Buffalo, situations with weather could pose a threat there. So, AFC West, like I said, fascinating to see which team can come out of it. All signs point to Kansas City at this point because I guess you would take that high-powered offense over any of the other teams, whatever their number one unit is on their team. Like I said, whether it's Denver's defense or Raiders' potential offensively or the Chargers' potential offensively. You'll take Kansas City's offense over that. But yeah, big win for Denver. Their rookie Pat Surtain had a couple of interceptions in this one, so I mean he showcased his skills. He even had a pick six. So yeah, it was a great win for them to keep themselves within the division race as well as a wild card spot. The last thing I'll say for that matchup, once again, could be a turning point here. Denver could have saved their season, and now they can go into some tough games coming up, I believe. Check here real quick, because I'm pretty sure they probably have a game against Kansas City coming up. Okay, they end the year with Kansas City. Okay, so they have Chiefs as their next game. Then they have the Lions. That's, it's a mini bye week, I guess. But then you have Bengals, Raiders, Chargers, Chiefs. So tough stretch here to end the season for Denver. I mean, it's gonna be a challenge for this team because those two games against the Chiefs are gonna be pivotal in not only their fate but the fate of the other teams in the division. And then the Bengals game is gonna be tough, and they still have their second game against Chargers and the Raiders. So the division is wide open still. It'll probably come down to that very last week with their game against Kansas City as to who wins this division. How many teams can come out of it and make the playoffs? So the AFC West is probably the most entertaining race left in football as we go down to the last weeks of the season. Let's go ahead and move on to the next game, Rams-Packers. The line on this one was 2. I took the Packers plus 2. And the Packers got this win 36-28. So they covered there. Let's see. So going into this one, we heard about Aaron Rodgers with his broken toe, which was previously joked about as COVID toe, but learned it was a fractured toe. We had the Rams coming into this one, losing 2 in a row after their hot start, looking like the best team in football. They've crashed back down to earth, and then they lost this one, so they've now lost 3 straight. They fall to 7-4. Packers are 9-3. So for Green Bay, it's going to be, I mean, we've seen this enough where they're clearly the best team in their division, so they're going to win the division crown easily. We'll have to see as they're fighting with the Cardinals. Can they be number 1 in the NFC? That way they bring all of their playoff opponents to Lambeau. But the real evaluation of Green Bay is not going to happen until the playoffs because, like I said, the division's a layup. We know how the recent playoff struggles have been with Rodgers. So we'll have to see, is he going to be able to finally get back over the hump and make a Super Bowl? Because he hasn't been to one in a while, even though they say he's the best quarterback in football, which I don't believe that, but but yeah, we'll revisit them come playoff time. For the Rams, now what we are seeing with the Rams is, and I think I said this in the offseason when they made the trade with Stafford and Goff. Yeah, I get it. Stafford is a better arm talent and all that than Goff. But Stafford's been playing in Detroit all these years. Well, there hasn't been any playoff pressure or anything like that. So for people to just assume that the first year he gets there with all the other pieces around them, that they're going to be like a lock playoff Super Bowl contender, I said pump the brakes on that because we don't even know if Stafford's that kind of guy, because going to LA with a lot of the talk about this team, how great it is, we don't know how he can deal with that. And we're starting to see over these past few weeks, he is struggling. He's throwing interceptions. He's missing receivers. And I know there's some talk that maybe he's dealing with an injury, which I feel like he deals with injuries every year because there's one thing about Matt Stafford. He'll sit in the pocket, and by doing that, he will take probably more hits than he should. But I'm not going to really knock him for that because, hey, that's just the toughness in him. But we'll have to see because now it's going to be on him to raise his level to try to get this team off of this losing streak because you don't want it to get to the point where now playoffs are in question. And luckily, their stretch of the schedule here, their last 6 games, Cardinals, tough, yes. Seahawks are a mess. That has to be a win. Vikings are a fringe playoff team. That has to be a win. But then the Ravens, we'll see where the Ravens are at that point, but that's tough. And then end year with the 49ers. There's only like a couple of cupcakes there, but it's going to be tough. And they're now going to have to be in a fight for a legitimate playoff spot. Luckily, like I said again, once you get past them in the NFC playoffs, it's a bunch of, I think it's like a 6-win team and a bunch of 5 and 4-win teams. So they should be fine, but they don't want to drop too far, become like a 6-7 seed and then just make their playoff run that much tougher. If they don't win the division, if they can stick as like the 5 seed, you'd be looking at like the Cowboys in the wild card round. That'd be better for you. So I don't know. It's something to watch because if the Rams somehow don't make the playoffs, off season out there is going to be really interesting. And also, last thing, the OBJ experiment there does not seem to be working at all. And I wonder with Odell, where does his career go from here? Because it seems like from the one-handed catch of the Giants that his career is slowly sliding the wrong way. And I don't know. He's a talented guy, but it seems like there's issues there. I don't know if it's one of those where he's just going to be remembered. Maybe he's just one of these wide receivers who likes to freelance, and not every organization is cool with that. Maybe it's the quarterbacks he's been with. I don't know, but it seems like he's talented enough that I don't know. It's just a weird thing what's going on with him right now. Because this is yet another stop for him. And I thought the Cleveland move was going to be great because he had Jarvis Landry to play with. But we saw what happened there at the end. When he finally got out of there, I thought, hey, he's going to be able to pick his destination. He picked the Rams. I understood. Most people want him to go to Green Bay. I think Green Bay was the spot most people wanted him to go. But you thought with the Rams, you have Cooper Kupp. You have Jefferson. I'm trying to think. No, Justin Jefferson's the one in Minnesota. So Van Jefferson's with the Rams. Good young wide receiver. They have, who's their tight end? Was it Higbee or something? Decent tight end. So I thought this would be a good chance for him to reestablish himself on the open market. But it just does not look good. So I honestly don't know where he goes from here. But that's the Rams issue. But all right, let's go ahead and take a look at the next game. Vikings and the 49ers. This was a game of two teams that shook off early dismal play, mainly because of injuries for the 49ers and for the Vikings, just inconsistency at quarterback. Seemed to have turned their season around. As fate would have it, the two of them played each other. And the line was 3.5. I took the Vikings plus 3.5. And in a tightly contested game, the Niners won it 34-26. So the Vikings did not cover. The Vikings had their chances in the fourth quarter. Just weren't able to make that pivotal play to get in the end zone to tie it. Or, well, I guess get in the end zone, then give themselves a chance to go for two to tie it. 49ers hold on for the win. Get to 6-5. So they've pushed ahead of that 4-5 win group. I said it last week. I'm going to say it again. If they can get healthy, the Niners will be a dangerous team. Now, we did hear from the organization during the week that their plans are to trade Jimmy Garoppolo in the offseason, go with Trey Lance next year. I mean, I guess. They took Trey Lance number 3 overall. So you don't take guys like that to have them sit too long. And Garoppolo always has questions about his health. But when healthy, he's a serviceable quarterback. So I'll have to see where they do trade him. Now, before, everybody was looking at New England as a possible spot for him to go back to. But that's when they had Cam Newton. Now that New England has Mac Jones, that's off the table. Would be interesting to see, would he go to a team like a Miami? Because they have Tua, but I don't think they're sold on Tua. Could he go there and, get them back into the playoffs? Cleveland, I think Cleveland's sticking with Baker Mayfield next year, I think. But who knows what happens there? Could that be something that he ends up there? So there's going to be teams that will take him. But for right now, he's playing well enough. And the 49ers have come all the way back and look like a team poised to make a little bit of noise in the playoffs. They just got George Kittle back, I think, last week. And that was a big piece that was missing from the offense. They still have some issues of running back because of injuries, but they get a guy or two back there, they'll be fine. I think Deebo Samuel tweaked an injury. But hopefully he can come back. But they have some pieces offensively and defensively. They have some guys there as well that could give some top-seeded team some trouble wild card weekend. I will say out of the wild card teams, they'll probably be the team that certain teams will want to avoid. And getting to 6-5 is key because they have the Seahawks next. Like I said, Seahawks are a mess, so that should be a win. The Bengals, tough. But then you got the Falcons, a tough game with the Titans, and then they have the Texans. So their schedule works out where they'll have winnable game followed by a tough game and then winnable tough. So if they just go 3-3, their last 6, they'll get to 9 wins. They'll get into playoffs easily in the NFC. So even though they're just 6-5, I could safely say right now I see the Niners as a lock for the playoffs. All right. hit the next game. The Vikings 5-6. They're stuck in that group with 5-win teams, but I think they'll be okay. Quick look at their schedule. So they got the Lions. So their next three, they got Lions, Steelers, Bears. 3 winnable games for them. Then they get Rams, Packers, tough, but then end with the Bears. So they could easily, they could go 4-2, get to 9 wins. They'll be set. All right, next game. This is the Sunday night game? Yes, Baltimore, Cleveland. The line was 3 on this one. I took the Ravens -3. And another ugly game. But as people will tell you, that's the AFC North football. Which, can we stop with that? I hear that all the time, but what does that really mean? Not all teams in the AFC North are great. So when it looks ugly, it's because the team isn't that good. But Ravens get the win, 16-10, which means they covered. So it's a win. But yeah, this is a game where if Baker Mayfield wasn't being held together by masking tape and guts, they probably win this one easily. Lamar Jackson threw 4 interceptions. Looked like the guy that I keep telling people needs to be better throwing the ball, because he has games like this in his back pocket, and it's because of games like this why I'm not considering them to be a Super Bowl contender. Yeah, he can run circles around people early in the year, but that's going to wear on this guy. And also, playoffs, most likely you're going to go up against a better defense who knows what you can do and actually has players that can stop you from doing that. Then it's always going to come back to, one, will Baltimore's defense be able to keep teams low enough that all they really need is Lamar to make a play or two, like a big play in a running game, put points on the board, whether it's field goals or not, and win that way, or Lamar's going to have to become better throwing the ball. Because, I think he had like 2 touchdowns, but if you saw those plays, they were terrible decisions, and only because Cleveland defensively on those plays didn't know what they were doing, they worked out for him. And even on a couple of completions that weren't touchdowns, they were bad throws that he got lucky. So this is a game. Yes, they win it. They get to 8-3 and are half game up over New England as the number 1 seed. But it does not make you feel good coming out of this game, because, like I said, he hasn't shown the development in the passing game to make me seriously think that he could, go up against New England defensively and make plays with his arm if they stop him on his scrambles and stop the running game. Or if they go up against, I was going to say Buffalo, but they lost Tre'Davious White. But other than that, Buffalo's a pretty good defense. I don't have faith that Lamar Jackson could go up against that defense and make consistent plays to make it, slam dunk that they get the win there. So, for Baltimore, it is what it is, because they're tied to this guy, and they've made it known what their game plan is. Put the ball in his hands and either hand it off to the right guy or keep it on an RPO play, tuck it, and just be faster than whoever's in pursuit. So, that's the Ravens. like I said, for Cleveland, I mean, I can't really say too much because Mayfield is hurt, and it's clear to see that he's hurt. But he's just out there because I guess that's just kind of the guy he is, and it makes sense because if you look at his college career, he was a guy who had to walk on and earn his way at was it Oklahoma? Yeah, because he originally was at Texas Tech and then left or whatever. So it's just who he is. So yeah, it's gonna be tough for Cleveland. It's clearly, if they're going to win games, it's going to be low scoring, relying on Nick Chubb and the recently returning Kareem Hunt to carry the offensive load, and then put Mayfield in situations where it's a, quick drop, quick throw, or if the running game's really going, play action, and finding Landry or whoever, in open space. Now, with that, go to the Monday night game, the final game on the Week 12 schedule. We had Seattle versus the football team of Washington. When I picked this game, the line was even, so I literally just had to pick the winner of the game. So I went the Seahawks, and once again, kind of another ugly game on the schedule. Washington was able to get the win, 17-15, so Seattle didn't cover. Let's see. Washington is somehow keeping it together to get to 5-6, be in that mix for a playoff spot. Defensively, they've kind of turned it around the past couple of weeks, but they've also gone against some weaker teams. So I don't know how I should feel about them, but I see some definite reasons for optimism there. And if they do get to the playoffs, I mean, you saw last year that they went up with Tampa Bay, played them tough. I could see them doing that again this year against the top team. Heineke, at this point, don't do anything stupid, because this isn't a team that can handle, turnovers and all that, because they just don't have the firepower to come back from that. For Seattle, it's rough watching them. I mean, Wilson, it's clear that he rushed back to play, but he's not right. Because one thing you knew about Russ was that he was accurate. He doesn't have that right now. Pete Carroll, looks like this could be the end for him in Seattle. The running game, non-existent. So you're putting pressure on a guy who's still injured to do what he was doing back when he was healthy earlier in the year, and it just can't do it right now, so they can't win. Defensively, they did well in this game, but that's mainly because Washington doesn't really have a high-powered offense. But when it came down to it, they couldn't make a play to get the ball back enough for Seattle. The stat was that this is going to be the first year for Wilson that he's missed the playoffs, which, if you think about it, that's incredible enough. But if Seattle wants to make it that this is a one-time thing of them missing the playoffs, then they're going to have to figure out a run game, because Chris Carson was good, but he was hurt, and they didn't really have a backup plan for him. It's gotten so bad that they're turning to Adrian Peterson now, who's on the practice squad, but I'm assuming is going to get elevated to the active roster to play Sunday. And I guess hopefully he can do something and take some heat off of Russ. But there's clearly some disconnect to the Seattle team right now. And some changes got to be made, and I've made this argument enough that if it comes down to a Russell Wilson versus Pete Carroll thing, if Seattle were smart, they would side with Russ Wilson and move on from Pete Carroll. But it's tough to see it end this way because the two of them have been so good together these years. For it to end this way, if this is the end for the combo, it's tough. And I mean, watching games on TV, watching Seahawks in Seattle, it's great to watch because the fans there are great, but there's not a lot to cheer for right now. And to see them sitting at 3-8 is really surprising to me, because I think before the season I had them as a playoff team, but obviously I couldn't see a Russell Wilson injury there. But even before the injury, they didn't look right. So it is what it is right now for them, and hopefully they can fix it in the offseason. But that was week 12. Bye teams were Chiefs and the Cardinals. And looking at the standings after week 12, we have, so in the AFC, you have, what am I doing here? Okay, so you have Baltimore as your new number 1, 8-3. New England and Tennessee are both 8-4. New England has a tiebreaker after beating them, so they're the number 2 seed. Tennessee's number 3. Kansas City is your 4 seed right now at 7-4. 3 wild card teams are Cincinnati and Buffalo at 7-4, and the Chargers at 6-5. And then looking at the teams right outside, Raiders and Broncos are 6-5. Colts 6-6. Steelers 5-5-1. But like I said, you can really count them out. And Cleveland at 6-6. But as long as Mayfield's hurt like this, I wouldn't really think about them either. So you're basically looking at Bengals, Bills versus the AFC West. Out of those 5 teams, 2 teams will get a playoff spot. So, I mean, it's a great race, but we'll see. I'm sure every week there's probably going to be a new team in and out, and then the following week a different team in. So, but like I said, we will check this after each week in review. So we'll stay on top of that. Now in the NFC, the Cardinals 1 seed at 9-2, best record in football right now. Packers are your 2 seed at 9-3. Bucks 3 seed 8-3. The Cowboys sitting there at 7-4 as the 4 seed. Those are your division leaders right now. The Rams 7-4. So your wild card team, sorry. The Rams at 7-4. Niners 6-5. And then Washington football team at 5-6 because of a tiebreaker over Minnesota, the Falcons, and the Saints, who are all 5-6 as well. And then you have the Eagles and the Panthers holding on at 5-7. And the Giants and the Bears are only a game out at 4-7. So like I said, I mean, the Seahawks are only 2 games out. So I'm kidding. I'm not looking at the Seahawks right now. Or the Bears, the Giants, really. Panthers, probably not. Eagles, maybe. So yeah, it's a mess in both AFC and the NFC in terms of the wild card. But the AFC clearly has better teams. As I said, San Francisco's getting healthier, so I think they'll start to distance themselves from the rest of the group. And I think Minnesota's probably the most talented of the 5-win teams. But they just have to stay but Kirk Cousins is going to have to be consistent for them. If he slips back into his bad habits, or if they have any games on prime time, I don't know if they do or not, then they could end up missing a good opportunity here to get a playoff spot. But that's your playoff outlook after week 12. And now we'll finish up the episode looking at the Thursday night game, where we have the Cowboys and the Saints. The line is 6.5. For the Saints, Alvin Kamara is out again, which is big because he's a big part of the offense. And they're starting Taysom Hill at quarterback, so Simeon will be the backup. Don't be surprised, you might see Simeon play, some packages or something. You might see both of them out there together. At this point, Peyton, like I said, has to get creative with the offense to try to get points on the board. Cowboys, this is a very winnable game. It'll be a chance for them to stop the bleeding right now. Get back into the win column and kind of silence some of the questions about this team. And I mean, looking at the two teams, the Cowboys are clearly the more talented roster right now. Where is this game? Is this game in New Orleans? Yes, it's in New Orleans. That's 6.5. This should be an easy win for Dallas. So I'm going to take Dallas minus the 6.5. If they lose this one, if they lose it or if they win kind of in an ugly way, like a late field goal to win, I mean, it's going to be rough. So, yeah, like I said, this is a game the Cowboys should be able to get back to what they do best. Because offensively, they have the ability to be explosive. This is the game that they should win easily and come out of it feeling like they figured some things out and are ready to move on. But the slide continues and New Orleans can get them. I mean, the Cowboy season could die quickly. So with that, I think it's a good place to stop. I mean, I don't know it's a lot, but take a quick breath there. But yeah, so that's the first pick for Week 13. We will look at the rest of Week 13 later on in the week. And I guess coming up, the next episode we'll talk college football because the playoff rankings came out on Tuesday. So I want to look at that and then look ahead to conference championship weekend in college football to see who has what to play for, which playoff spots are locked in right now. So I think it'll be a great episode. But thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Maybe you learned something. Or let me know. Was I too harsh on your team? Did I not give your team enough praise? Let me know. Whether you leave a comment wherever you're listening to this or follow me at Chompin' Podcast on Twitter. Let me know there. Or if you go to the Facebook page, Chompin' at the Bit, you can do that there. Or am I supposed to call it Meta now? I don't know. Whatever they got going on there. But it's on Facebook. And yeah, go ahead and leave a review if you have that opportunity on whatever platform you're listening to it. Let me know what you like about the show, what you don't like. Recently, if you, I guess, are on Good Pods, the podcast is there as well. You can leave a comment on there as well for me. So however you want to do it, go ahead. I'll definitely take your criticism if you have any. I'm all for it. But thanks again. As I always say, be safe out there. God bless, of course. And I'll catch you on the next episode. All right, I'm out.